Minglawa and welcome to Myanmar Radio's Myanmar Today. I am Aga Jo. Today we are reports on new COVID cases from the returnees. Tourism is a prioritized industry for government's recovery plan. And the last report is schools in preparation for 6 feet social distancing. All of that on this edition of Myanmar Today. But for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. Union Minister for Investment and Foreign Economic Relations U Taung-ton yesterday attended a special ASEAN Economic Ministers meeting on COVID-19 and a special ASEAN Plus 3 Economic Ministers meeting on COVID-19 consecutively via video conference. Throughout the meetings, participants shared updates on respective national-level efforts and lessons learned in the pursuit of joint and collective efforts to mitigate COVID-19's economic impacts. Ministers also exchanged views on the need to keep markets open to trade and investment without enhancing the risk of virus spread and to strengthen the resiliency and sustainability of regional supply chains. Myanmar has been making systematic arrangements for the return of the migrant workers from Thailand since 1st May. The total number of returnees through Myanmar-Thai Friendship Bridge 2 of Myauri border town in Kayun State yesterday was 1,204. Among them, the 217 persons were brought back by 9 buses from Mochit Bus Terminal in Bangkok under negotiations of the two governments and the arrangement of Myanmar Embassy in Thailand, while the remaining 894 persons came back home in their schedules from various parts of the kingdom, and 123 persons served punishments and jail terms in the neighboring country. The export of Myanmar to China declined by over $160 million in over 8 months of this fiscal year compared to that of last year, according to the Ministry of Commerce. Although the bilateral trade between Myanmar and China has increased annually, it has dropped this year because of the pandemic. Currently, the officials from the two countries are discussing to solve the difficulties in trading at the Muse border. Myanmar carries out China border trade via Muse, Chinshuihua, Ganbaidi, and Lueje borders. Within 8 months of this fiscal year, Myanmar's export to China reached $2.5 billion, while its import shared $1.1 billion. That is according to the Ministry of Commerce. That's all with the local news. Now we'll move on to our first report. The total number of COVID-19 confirmed cases jumped to 236, with 6 deaths. Meanwhile, 148 people have recovered and been discharged from the related hospitals. According to the Ministry of Health and Sports, the National Health Laboratory and the Department of Medical Research Laboratory have done over 29,000 tests. Despite the fact that the people are coming back to work, the risk of infection is still on the rise from the imported cases. Bomo and Soitana have more.
Total of the COVID-19 confirmed cases up to 236, with 6 deaths. Meanwhile, 148 people have recovered and been discharged from the related hospital. According to the Ministry of Health and Sport, the National Health Laboratory and the Department of Medical Research Laboratory have done over 29,000 tests for the COVID-19. As the restriction were eased, restaurants, tea shops, factories, and markets have begun resuming operation from June. The factory workers and the government employees have got back to their workplace since the middle of May. Despite the fact that the people are coming back to the work, the risk of infection cases is still up from the important cases from the returning day by day. The new local transmission have found out after 2 weeks of no local transmission. With regard to the local transmission, Dr. Tan Nangso, Director of Health Knowledge Promotion Division from the Ministry of Health and Sport, gave a detailed explanation.
The local transmission case is from Muse Township in northern Shan State, and the victim is the health officer who organized the returnees from the border gates. She did not have any contact with the positive patients, and had no travel history abroad. This is a new local transmission, which has been found out after 2 weeks no local transmission. We always report on the challenges that we face regarding the COVID-19 to the Ministry of Health and Sports. We have screened all the returnees. There are a lot of returnees. Now we have to be very cautious about the risk of the possible infection because most of the patients don't show any symptoms even though they have tested positive.
The National Level Central Committee on Prevention, Control and the Treatment of COVID-19 asked the returnee to undergo the mandatory 21-day facility quarantine. Due to the temporary suspension of international flight, Myanmar National Airlines from foreign countries faced the difficulty to return to Myanmar. Uwe Pyo-han, regional representative from Insein Township, spoke to Myanmar Radio about the current prevention against the COVID-19. He said,
Currently,
we are cleaning and spraying the pesticide to school, in which will reopen in July in collaboration with the community volunteers. We set up hand wash basin at basic education schools in Insein. As we know, there's a rare local transmission in a few days, but we have found a new one who is health worker. For our township, we will deliver masks and support medical supplies.
Even though the ban on inbound international flight is still in effect, the foreign national traveling to Myanmar for professional purpose will need to show a certificate stating that they are free from the COVID-19. Foreigners will have to finish the 21-day quarantine, 1 week home quarantine in their respective country before the flight, and 1 week quarantine after arriving in Myanmar, and finally 1 more week of home quarantine in Myanmar before making it clear to work in the country, according to the statement from the National Level Central Committee on Prevention, Control and Treatment on COVID-19. As the rainy season have come to Myanmar, local people have worried about the similar symptom of infection of the seasonal fever and the COVID-19. The Yangon region government is also carrying out anti-COVID-19 measures in the crowded township in Yangon. Ko Min Tu, the resident from Takita Township, spoke to MI Radio.
After the semi-lockdown period in Yangon as a delivery man, I have to go around Yangon. After the restrictions, a lot of people came out to the road. And for me, I'm a delivery man. I have to protect for myself and for my customers. I always wear masks and practice social distancing whenever I deliver the items to my customers.
Yangon have 176 COVID-19 infected patients. Most of whom are now receiving medical treatment in Webaki Specialty Hospital, Yangon. The global pandemic has spread to 188 countries, killing over 388,000 people and 3,171,000 recovering, according to the Worldometer Coronavirus Resource Center.
That's a report on new COVID-19 cases from the returnees. Ministry of Hotels and Tourism coordinated a video conference on the COVID-19 Myanmar Tourism Strategic Roadmap. The meeting finalized the remaining aspects of the COVID-19 crisis management. The government is supposed to spend $3.5 billion, 5% of the national GDP, on recovering processes in most devastating sectors, including tourism industry. Pyo Ritu has more.
Ministry of Hotels and Tourism coordinated a video conference on the COVID-19 Myanmar Tourism Strategy Roadmap on May 23rd. The government officials from the Ministry of Hotels and Tourism, the chairpersons of the Myanmar Tourism Federation, and the 11 affiliated associations in Myanmar tourism industry attended the meeting. The meeting finalized the remaining aspects of the COVID-19 crisis management, Myanmar Tourism Strategy Roadmap, and compiled suggestions from all the stakeholders of the tourism industry for detailed action plans at each step of the roadmap. The recovery of the sector depends on the country's ability to control and contain the spread of COVID-19. Uke Anton, Vice Chairman of Myanmar Tourism Federation, said reoperations of the tourism sector in Myanmar.
Recovery Myanmar GDP of 5%, $2.5 billion, 3,000 million.
We've heard that the government's supposed to spend 3.5 billion US dollars, 5% of national GDP on recovering processes in most devastating sectors, including tourism industry. The government has also applied the loan package for coronavirus hit local business in key sectors as its initial strategies to cushion the global pandemic on country's economy. The fund offers loan package earmarks about 72 million US dollars, and now nearly 900 businesses have already completed for that. One third of these businesses are from tourism industry, and so they are expected to withstand the effect some longer. Some tour agencies, hotels, and restaurants in particular states and regions have started its operation because the government is getting to release a restriction in some states and regions. So we have cushioned that the restrictions and relaxations are different from one religions and others, and to strictly follow the government instructions and in case of medical check. As current conditions, we can't much expect to inbound and outbound, but the domestic tourism is likely to run earlier. The tourism industry recovery strategic roadmap is still finalizing. It is supposed to finish during this month.
U Aung Thonglin, chairman of Myanmar Tourist Guide Association, said the difficulties of the tourist guide during the wave of COVID-19.
သတ်မှတ်ထားတဲ့ criteria တွေနဲ့ဆိုရင်အလန်းညွန်တွေတော့ကဘယ်လိုမှအကျုံးမဝင်ဘူး
Even though we are one of the affiliated association in tourism industry, we are just a non-business organization. We can even apply to get loan because the tour guides are not applicable to the current criteria for the government's stimulus loan package. There are nearly 10,000 of national and regional tour guides in Myanmar. All these 10,000 of tour guides can possibly withstand for one travel season. But if this situation don't recover within one travel season, it is possible that many tour guides will change their career. But we are not like the source of businesses and we are not still in business classes. So we can apply for the loan or support. It is impossible that it is hard to restore the criteria only for us. One condition is that it is possible to invest send fund only for licensed tour guides.
U Min Taw, Joint Secretary General, Myanmar Hotelier Association, said their recovery plan.
ကိုဗစ်ကာလ March April May 2020မှာရတဲ့ဝင်ငွေကိုနှိုင်းယှဉ်ရမယ်ဆိုရင်ဒီကိုဗစ်ကာလဒီ March April May ဒီ3လရဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဒီခုနဟိုတယ်တွေ400လောက်ကိုအကြမ်းမြင်ခံမှန်းကြည့်ရမယ်ဆိုရင်ကျပ်ဘီလီယံ260လောက်ဆုံးရှုံးတယ်လို့မှန်းဆကြည့်ရပါတော့
The estimated loss for 3 months, March, April, May, is over 260 billion just, and it is calculated only for 400 hotels. The recovery plan is intended for 3 phases: survival, reopen, and relaunch. For the stage of survival, hotel and tour businesses are be exempted for paying license fees for a period of 1 year. MHA has eased 70% exemption for member businesses till September. We are trying to provide the guidelines and SOP for COVID-19 safe service to the customer.
Myanmar was mentioned in the article titled Rising Star in Travel of Fourth Magazine. I am Pyotiritu. This is news reporting from MI Radio.
That's a report on tourism being a prioritized industry for government's recovery plan. Stay with us as we bring you more reports on Myanmar Today. In Myanmar, the academic year of the state schools usually starts in June, and an academic year takes nearly 10 months. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government decided to postpone the start of the school year to July. During a video conference on the 12th of May, State Councillor Daw San Suu Kyi said the schools must reopen as soon as possible, but with the necessary changes to comply with the COVID-19 regulations.
Public schools in Myanmar are likely to reopen in coming July, starting with basic education high school in late July, followed by the middle school and primary schools 2 weeks later, according to the Department of Basic Education. Starting from the last week of May, the officials from the Ministry of Education held the video workshops to discuss the reopening of the state schools. Union Minister of Education Dr. Myo Taingji said government schools are going to be opened on July 21st, and this will also include private and monastic schools during a meeting. In Myanmar, the academic year of the state school usually starts in June, and an academic year takes nearly 10 months. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government decided to postpone the start of the school year to July. During a video conference on 12 May, State Councillor Do Aung San Suu Kyi said that schools must reopen as soon as possible, but with the necessary changes to comply with COVID-19 regulations. Following this, the Education Ministry had planned to reopen schools, but the schools will need to follow the instructions of the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health and Sports. Dr. Nau, Senior Assistant Teacher, Number 1 Basic Education High School in Babadan Township, said,
အခုလက်ရှိနေတာမှာကျောင်းသားကျောင်းသူတွေကိုတဦးစီကို6ပေအကွာထားဖို့စာရေးကုန်တွေကိုပြင်ဆင်ထားခိုင်းပါတယ်။ကျွန်တော်တို့ကျောင်းနေနေကတော့ကြိုတင်ပြင်ဆင်ပြီးသွားပါပြီ။ကျောင်းသားတစ်ခန်းကိုပေ30 24ပေရှိတယ်
Currently, we have prepared the school desk with about the single or double desk to keep the student maintaining a minimum of 6 feet social distance according to the guidelines. A school classroom with a measurement of 35 to 24 feet will accommodate for 15 students and 1 teacher with 6 feet social distance. We will close the school cafeteria and don't include a particular break time for lunch. The student can only take refreshment time during the same gaps between the class hours. We are also instructed to make a hand wash basin for 50 students. Starting from the school enrollment day, the students have to wear the mask and the assigned teachers will measure body temperature of the student at the school gate, and the teacher will accept the enrollment form from a distance away. We will measure the student daily temperature as soon as the school starts. When the student enter to the school and before they leave from the school gate, we have them follow the 6 feet social distancing rule.
The chairman of Private Teachers Association, Saya Utwe, said his opinion on reopening the schools in July and the potential difficulties for this specific situation.
ကျွန်တော်တွေ့တာဒီ55ရက်လောက်နောက်ကျတာဖွင့်တာလေနှစ်လလောက်နောက်ကျဖွင့်တာကအခက်အခဲမရှိနိုင်ဘူးလေ
As we are late for 55 days, nearly 2 months to the normal academic year, it still doesn't matter. The normal academic year takes 10 months, and so we left about 8 months for the curriculum. The teachers can teach and finish the whole curriculum within these 8 months. But if there are any more government orders like dividing the students as group, and a group can attend 1 week and take break and then another group attend. So we can only get about 4 months for the whole academic year. It is difficult to finish even the half of the curriculum within these 4 months. It is also hard to disseminate online teaching method. It will take more time to implement online teaching and learning programs to cover all schools countrywide.
The Ministry of Education is in the process of adopting the detailed rules on how to open the private and monastic schools as well as private schools. I am Pyo Ritu. This is news reporting from MI Radio.
And that's all we have for today's reports, and it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. Chinese President Xi Jinping said Wednesday that China stands ready to work with Germany and the European Union to strengthen strategic cooperation, uphold multilateralism, tackle global challenges, and jointly add certainty to the current world of uncertainty. In a phone conversation on Wednesday with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, President Xi noted that it was the third time since the COVID-19 outbreak that he had talked with her over the phone, reflecting the deep political mutual trust and close strategic communication between the two sides. Libya's UN-recognized unity government said Thursday that it was back in full control of the capital Tripoli and its suburbs after more than a year of fighting off an offensive by eastern-based strongman Khalifa Haftar. Mohammed Gnono, a spokesman for the forces of the Government of the National Accord (GNA), said in his statement that our brave forces have taken control of all of Tripoli after regaining control of the southern Tripoli from the militias of the Haftar. Meanwhile, Salah Namrouche, Undersecretary of the Ministry of Defense for the UN-backed government, said in his statement that the government's forces are pursuing the militias of the Haftar outside borders of the Greater Tripoli. George Floyd's death in police custody has sparked outrage in the U.S. as protesters head to streets to march against racial inequality and police brutality. Nationwide protests and rallies continue, though curfews have been imposed in major cities in the country. An influential article that found hydroxychloroquine increases the risk of death in coronavirus patients has been retracted over data concerns. 3 of the study's authors said they could no longer vouch for its veracity because Surgisphere, a healthcare firm behind the data, would not allow an independent review of its data set. Its findings led the WHO to suspend its testing on the anti-malaria drug. But leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, continue to tout its use. Family, politicians, and activists gathered on Thursday at North Central University to pay tribute to George Floyd. They stood in silence for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, which is the amount of time Floyd was pinned on the ground by the police. The service is the first in a series of memorials set for 3 cities over 6 days.
And when I looked this time and saw marches where in some cases young whites outnumbered the blacks marching, I know that it's a different time and a different season. I come to tell you, America, this is the time of dealing with accountability in the criminal justice system.
U.S. private space company SpaceX launched its 8th batch of the 60 Starlink satellites into space on Wednesday.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Copy, North Pitching down range.
Nico.
Stage separation confirmed.
Landing legs have deployed.
Stage 2 FTSS saved. Payload deploy confirmed.
And there is that confirmation. We got a live view as it was deploying from the vehicle. Those Starlink satellites are making their way, separating from second stage right in front of you right now. Shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit.
And that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining me on Myanmar Today. I am Agacho. Have a great day, everyone. Stay home, stay safe, practice good personal hygiene, and follow instructions strictly. And always be on high alert for important news. Goodbye.